we are living in a world that is really, really, really problematic for
Right.
these young kids.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today, I want to welcome Andrea Sonnenberg. Andrea, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing with me and also with the audience some of who you are and what you're doing in the world. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's so great to meet you.
So let's start off and have you share with our audience. And obviously, for everyone, you can get all of the details you want in the show notes. But Andrea, share a little bit about what do you want the audience to know about you today?
Well, I am a lawyer by training and had a very full career as an entertainment lawyer. And then I founded a nonprofit, a literacy nonprofit for kids from underserved communities. But then 7 years ago, my beloved 21-year-old son died from psychiatric drug interactions. Just died. Had mental health struggles his whole life. I like to say that every medication found in his system had been prescribed to him. And but he just died. So that changed my life, as you could imagine.
Right.
And it put me on a different path. And the path was to make sure that no one else, not even one person, if I could help one person. As we say in Judaism, I'm Jewish. If you save one life, you save the world.
Mm.
So my theory was that if I could save one person, I could do something in his name and prevent others from suffering the way he did and the way that our family did. And
Mm.
so that's what I'm doing now. I'm on a mission
Mm.
to address the youth mental health crisis in the way that I can as a layperson, because I'm not a mental health
Right.
professional.
Right.
I'm just a mom. But I like to say that I am an accidental expert who learned a lot from raising a young child
Mm.
with mental health struggles. So
Wow.
that's where I am.
Ooh, so much in there. And I know that a lot of us can relate to some of that. And wow, thank you for, an accidental expert. Thank you for jumping in and making impact in your way because it does take more than just one area, right? Or one person. It takes all of us. So thank you. And thank you for being willing to share because I know there's a lot. It's growing, and especially in our youth. And so it's something that's not always comfortable to speak about. So I thank you for being here and speaking it. And I want to ask you if you could just share with us so that we have a little sense of your son. What like what do you, if you don't mind, like what was his personality like? What was he like?
Oh, he was unbelievable. He was creative. He was a very talented singer and actor. He starred in all
Mhm.
the high school musicals. He was beautiful. He was tall. We laugh. He was the tallest Sonnenberg because we're not all that tall, and he was really tall. He loved art. He particularly loved the painter Rothko, and he would tell
Mm.
you exactly how to look at a Rothko. Like you had to be a
Wow.
certain distance from the painting, and you had to look at it like this. And he was sarcastic, and he was witty, and he was irreverent. He loved like dystopian novels. He just was an
Mm.
incredible, he was an incredible soul.
Mm.
One of his claims to fame was that he bought a Bitcoin back in the early day. He took his savings, and we were like, what are you doing? What is a Bitcoin? And he bought a Bitcoin for $400, that's now
Right.
worth, now now worth a fortune. But so he was very otherworldly. And I'll tell you
Right.
a funny, funny, funny story. When my kids, he's a twin, and then I have an older son, so they're 3.5 years apart. So when my oldest son was about 4, let's say, and the twins were like 2.5,
Hmm.
they were in a little stroller, and Jake was dragging kind of behind them, and we were in the tie section at Barney's, which is a department store in Beverly Hills, because that's all we could do is kind of rush through with them with the strollers. And so we could look at ties because that
Right.
was, that was easy. And we were looking at ties, and this woman comes up to us, and she's in like this flowy dress, and she has like flowy hair, and kind of very, very, very otherworldly. And she says to me, I'm getting like a really interesting vibe about your kids. Can I give you a read? I'm like,
Wow.
okay. And she says, that one, and she points to my oldest son, is going to change the world. That one, and she points to my daughter, is going to fight for justice. She goes, and that one, she points to Bradley, is from another planet.
That is so random that someone came up and said that.
Right. Okay. So
Huh.
fast forward years and years, years later, Bradley was from another planet. Like, as I just said to you, he was otherworldly.
Right.
My oldest son, went to law school and then went to medical school and is now working to help save the world. I mean, really working to help save the world. Works in underserved communities and is a doctor.
Right.
My daughter is a lawyer and is, and is,
Wow.
and is fighting for justice. So she kind of knew what she was doing. So
That is
that
wild.
isn't that wild. So that
Yeah.
sort of gives you a sense of Bradley. He did have a hard time finding a place in this
In
world. I
this
always
world.
kind of felt that
Right.
of him. And I like to say now that he found his place with me in my heart, and we do this work together.
I was
Like,
going to ask you about that actually, because I have spoken with a number of people, and there is a sense of if someone's on the other side and there is that strong urge, push, whatever you want to call it, nudge to create and do something in the world, that there is that sense. I've heard that many times of having that sense of doing it together. So say a little bit more about that. What is that? Here you're coming on. You shared. You're a lawyer. You're very left brain, and as far as
right,
what your experience background has been, and this is something that I would say, and I know with the clients I work with, there's a little bit like, ooh, that area over there, you can't put
right,
it into a logical, linear,
right.
understanding. So speak a little bit to that. It's been 7 years now, but what's that transition been like for you?
Right. Well, you hit the nail on the head because I am very left brain and I'm a little bit like sort of more black and white um, than than that sort of concept of like otherworldly and but I really do feel very strongly that we are doing this work together and that he drives me and that he would be incredibly proud. He also would be like a little like, are you for sure for real, mom? Like I think he would be like a little bit embarrassed. Um, but I do think that I couldn't do it without him. I think he would be blown away at the impact that he's making. Um,
Mm,
and the value that, his short life has been able to
right.
accomplish. So yes, I absolutely do believe that. It's interesting though, I am very left brain, but as I mentioned, he was this amazing singer.
Mm,
And um, I sing
okay.
not like he does, but I sang when I was younger. And when he died, I had stopped singing just because I got busy and lawyering and
Right.
mothering and all that kind of stuff. And the cantor at our synagogue had said to me, why don't you start singing to stay connected to Bradley? That was something that he loved,
Wow.
and it's something that you could do, and it could be healing. And a
Right.
cantor is the song leader, is the person that's in charge of all the music at the synagogue. And she said, like, come in and meet with me once a week and we'll sing together. And so I did that. And I went in, and first we didn't do much singing. We did a lot of crying. We did a lot of talking. We did a lot of crystals and Reiki and, just like all the different modalities for healing. And slowly but surely she would say, like, let's try this song. And I think Bradley, this is reminiscent of something that Bradley would like. And this is something
Mm,
that is in the vein of something that Bradley would like. Or this is something Bradley would never believe that you're going to sing, and
yeah.
let's try it. And then over the weeks and weeks and months, and then she finally said to me, okay, it's time. It's time. You're going to sing at services. And I do that now. And I'm able to
Wow.
do it with Bradley in my heart. And
That's
so I say,
incredible. What an incredible gift this person was. You know, just the points that got you connected, right? Because I mean, you mentioned crystals, you mentioned Reiki, you mentioned, I mean, there was a whole lot else going on besides just picking up some music and singing it, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And
Wow.
it was my healing. And it was a gift that she gave to me, and also now a gift. I feel like I represent resilience for the community. And so
Right.
people see me up there singing and they're like, oh wow, like if she can do it, I
Right.
can do it. You know, if like
Right.
the worst thing that could happen
Right.
to a person happened to her and she's up there singing, like, I can do this. And
Yeah.
so I feel like he inspired that as well. I don't think I ever would have gone back to singing. It just wasn't, it wasn't,
But you were listening to the signs, right? I mean, that's something that I talk a lot about with my clients is, you know, sometimes we don't know exactly that next step, but if we're open and we listen and we kind of watch for those signs, which it sounds like you're describing something, you know, because it would be really easy to shut down and shut in.
yeah, yeah,
Anyone who's gone through something incredibly traumatic, a tragedy, a loss like that, it's very, very easy, but it doesn't feel good because then we feel disconnected. So
right.
what you described as, you know, someone seeing someone, you know, it's like these little signs on a treasure hunt to help you to be able to. And I do believe that there's something going on off of this human existence where your son is part of that guidance system. That's my belief. You know,
Yeah,
who knows?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Well,
it
all
sounds
I
like a thing.
know, and I'm not like a woo-woo kind of person. Like I said, I'm pretty black and white, but all I know is there's a soundtrack for In the Heights, which is one of Bradley's all-time favorites, and it blasts in my car on its own and won't turn off like all the time.
Wow.
Like I get in the car, I don't press the button. I'm like, it's not even really on my playlist. I mean, it must be on something, and I try to turn it off
That's
and it won't go off, and
that.
then it keeps coming back on and keeps coming back on. So I don't know. You tell me. Is
Well, what I will tell you is the exact same thing happened after my mom died, and
that
it
right?
was a song that I would never. It's a little bit country, and I don't listen to country music, so but it kept showing up. This is, you know, before, this was a while ago, so it was before cars had. I mean, it was a radio,
Right,
you
right,
know, and this song, which wasn't necessarily her favorite song, but the words in the song were actually telling me what she wanted me to know. I could
wow,
feel it. And my sister had the same thing, the same
wow,
song. It just
wow,
kept coming on. So I'm also, I would say, very, very left brain, very
right,
logical, linear. But
right.
that experience for me did change. It did open up more of, huh, I
Yep.
can't explain. My left brain cannot explain why every single time I get in the car, even if I don't turn the radio on, which is
That's
what you were
right.
saying.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and it just kept coming back and coming back. So,
Right.
be open to it.
Be
Be
open.
open to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're thinking, I mean, look, you speak about being that symbol of resilience for people. And I know that in your work, in some of your work, part of what you're doing is really looking at how can we support, or how can you create a way to support young, it is focused on young, right? Younger
It is,
people
because
with
that's where
mental
my
health.
area,
Yeah.
yeah, youth
Yeah.
mental health. Yeah.
So say a little bit more about what let's go big picture, right? Like you've had your personal experience with your son, but when you look big picture and over the last 7 years, which in my view, it's becoming more of an issue rather than less of an issue. So as you look at that big picture and you're small, I mean, you're
Right.
piece of it, but when you look at that big picture, what do you believe is happening on a bigger scale? And then second, what's possible?
Right. Well, there's so many things that are contributing to it. In no small measure, I hate to say this, but like social media
Yeah,
is it's a big problem.
yeah,
Um, I mean, as adults, we see it, but we're adults and we're mature
right,
and we can
right,
handle it and we can
right,
say like, oh, that's the Christmas card picture, that's the
right,
Disneyland picture, like, but young people can't.
right,
So, there's social media. there's was COVID and sort of still recovering from COVID.
Right.
There's just this loneliness crisis that, we can't seem to alleviate. There is just normal teen angst,
Right.
that
Right.
and like that
Which has
that's
always been there. Yeah.
right, that it's just hard to be a teenager and it's hard to grow up. And then there's, you know, politics that, things have gotten so divisive
Right.
and
Right.
then there's wars and then there's climate change and then
Right.
there's fires like in Los Angeles. I mean,
Right.
we are living in a world that is really, really, really problematic for
Right.
these young kids.
Right.
So,
And feels
like
very scary a lot of times. You
it's
know? Yeah.
it's dystopian.
Yeah.
Like it's surreal
Yeah.
in the magnitude of what is going on, with our world and what is going on with, the mental health of our kids. So we got problems. Like,
Mhm.
there we know that. And it's all over the place. 1 in 4 kids are struggling. And I think there was some statistic that the number of kids that are struggling would equal like the number of kids, the number of people in a plane crashing like every year. And, we would never let that go unaddressed. We would go to
Mhm.
Boeing and we would
Mhm.
say, fix
Mhm.
these planes.
Right.
We can't have these kind of deaths. So we have to address it. And
Right.
we are theoretically, like we're raising awareness. We've got mental health awareness month. We've got therapy is more accessible. Our young people are much more open to mental health.
Right.
They talk about it openly. They're willing to say, like, I go to my therapist. It's not as stigmatized.
Mhm.
Um, but there's more that we need to do.
Mhm.
Um, we need on a global or certainly like on a national level, global too, but we can start,
Right.
focus on nationally, and even then zoom in on California. We need legislation to deal with social media. And that is something that is in the works. And I'm a part of an advocacy group, the Center for Children and Youth. It's actually based up in San Francisco, and they do amazing, amazing advocacy work. We actually went to Washington, D.C., and met with Congress people to lobby. We've got to
Mhm.
hold these social media companies accountable for the improper and dangerous content that they're posting. I mean,
Mhm.
I am scared to say the kind of things that are on social media,
Yeah.
but terrifying things. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not sure who our audience
Yeah.
is, but things like how to take your own life.
Right. Right.
Um, you know, how to be anorexic and
Right.
like,
Right.
glorifying
Right.
bodies that are emaciated and that kind of stuff is just not okay.
Right. Right.
So that's something that we need to do. And that's something that people can do. People can write their Congress people can support these kind of bills. We can advocate for legislation to control social media. Something that's really, really, really simple and something that I didn't learn until after I lost my son is we need to be open and we need to be share resources and we need to help each other and we need to not be ashamed and we need to basically the bottom line is we need to treat physical illness the same as mental illness. No big deal. Broken leg, no big deal.
So say a little bit more about that.
Well,
Yeah,
when
because
you
I know that you and I had talked a little bit prior to the show, and that sense, again, back to that feeling alone and the tendency, that the feeling that you kind of need to pull in and keep it to yourself. Say a little bit more about the openness and
yeah.
the value of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was very private, very ashamed, um, never reached out, and I have since learned that there were resources available
Mhm.
that could have been helpful to me. Like NAMI, the
Mhm.
National Alliance of Mental Illness, has amazing support groups,
Mhm.
amazing
Mhm.
for families of kids that are struggling, for caregivers, they have peer groups. They have groups where someone that's struggling themselves can share their story. There's like amazing, amazing support groups.
Right.
And I didn't know about any of that
Right.
because I was very private
Right.
and very closed off.
Mm.
Plus, I just felt alone. Like I didn't, I didn't have anyone to say, like, it's okay. I got the same thing going on.
Right.
I
Right.
mean,
Because no one was talking about it, right?
no
So
one was talking
you
about
had
it.
no
And
idea.
I have to say, my like single most valuable piece of advice that I think is valuable is to share, because you will feel so much better, and guaranteed every single person is impacted by mental health. Everyone. It's either a relative, a coworker, a friend, a
Like
parent,
another child. Yeah.
everyone,
So, but
everyone.
what would you say? So if someone's listening and they, whether it's a child, whether it's themselves, whether it's a significant other, whoever it is, um, and it's and they feel very alone in dealing with it, or it could be themselves.
Right.
How and I think one of the things that's so great and why I appreciate having you on this show is you come from a world where you've been incredibly successful. You're obviously very bright and have done a lot of you've had a lot of experience, and there is something that comes with that, of feeling like, let's just say it, that you're keeping it together, that you have everything right. There
But
is
I
that.
don't. But I don't.
So this is what I want to speak to.
But I don't.
So what if someone's
And
in that?
nobody does. Nobody does.
That might
Nobody.
be that might be the answer to the question, right? And I agree with you on that, because no one has it all together. It can look like it on the outside.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And some people, honestly, some people are better at hiding it. I don't think that's better. I
Right.
don't think it's
Right.
necessarily better. But
Right.
what would you say to that person who feels very alone in that? Um, and you say share, but there is that like, oh, I don't know if I
Right.
can. What
You
would you
know
say?
what? You have to find the right person to share with.
Yes.
And that's really what it boils down
Yeah.
to. And you will.
Yeah.
And even if it means, reaching out to an organization, and you find someone that maybe you didn't know, but
Yeah.
you find someone that's in a similar situation.
Yeah.
AA and all that, it's very, very successful
Right.
because people find a community and they support each other,
Yeah.
and the single most thing that helped me heal. And now I still have a hole in my heart, and I
Yeah. Of
still, and
course.
I'm still grieving, and I
Yeah.
still will never get over the fact that my son doesn't exist. But I have healed, and
Yeah.
I have joy, and I laugh, and I dance, and
Yeah.
I have
That's so important for people to hear, Andrea,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know? Yeah.
That was one of the first questions I asked when this happened to me, and I knew someone that knew someone who had lost a child, and I said, "Are they happy?" Is there gonna be light at the end of this tunnel?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
when it happens, you can't even imagine it.
Yeah.
Um, but the point is that you I found a group of grieving mothers, and we bonded together.
So how did you
So there are professional
get it?
organizations, nonprofits that do this. There's Our House, there's Grief Haven, and they're amazing, and you can find it that way. I was just very fortunate and unfortunate for these other people that there are a
Right.
lot of women right around the time that I lost my child, lost their child.
Mm.
And one of them reached out to me, and because she knew of me through the community, we didn't know each other, but she
Okay.
had like heard through the community, and she reached out to me on Facebook Messenger. And
Hmm.
I didn't get the notification. I missed it. I didn't see it
Right.
for like a month or so, and then
Mm.
finally I saw it and I went, "Oh, yeah, great." And I said, "But I'm not leaving the house." And she said, "Oh, I'll come to you. I need you. I need you. I'll come to you."
Oh.
And she came to me, and then we found another woman, and then we found another woman,
Hmm.
and then we found another woman. There were a
You're
lot.
like
So
friends of friends, people who knew people.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so, we formed
But I
this group.
get, but I guess that goes back to sharing in a way, because they would have needed to know about that, about your loss,
Right. And
right?
right. And they did. And that's what I'm saying. If you don't have
Yeah.
that, you look to these professional organizations, and they have support groups. You
Yeah.
absolutely will find a support group. And hands down, it's what saved me. It's the like um, I can't go to sleep tonight because I'm so upset that tomorrow is his birthday and, what am I going to do? And, or some of the basic things like in the very beginning, people are avoiding me because
Right.
they don't know what to say to me,
Right.
which I get it. I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. But, it's
Yeah.
still, I'm the person that's being avoided.
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
it's
Right.
nice to be able to share it with someone.
Or there's sometimes is that weird feeling, no one really speaks about it, but it's like, oh, I don't want to get too close to that
Yep.
tragedy,
Yep.
right? I
Yep.
mean, that is very true. It's not a very, it's not a very fun thing to admit to, but that definitely is true. It's kind of like, ooh, I want to keep that over there so that it
Maybe it
doesn't
won't
come.
get me. Maybe
Exactly.
that's exactly right.
Exactly.
So yeah, so translating that to like anything, a support group, a network of people that
Right.
share what you're going through
Yeah.
is really, really, really crucial.
Yeah.
Um, and really, really healing. Um, and along those lines, I think when you and I spoke, I mentioned that I was doing a podcast for a while
Oh, that's
and
right.
it was called Getting Through.
Mm.
And the irony was that I was interviewing young people who were getting through, so they were struggling with mental health issues but getting through, but really it
Right.
was also a
Right.
metaphor for
Right.
me getting through. And so that also was something that was really helpful to me,
Mm.
was to connect with young people
Hmm.
who were struggling similarly to my son and maybe
Right.
feeling like, wow, they're
Sure.
going to have a good outcome.
Right.
And
Right.
maybe in a way, by me giving them this opportunity to share, it will help them and I can
Right.
somehow impact their
Right.
well-being. And then
Right.
then I became, friendly with these people and sort of mentors to a lot of them. And
Right.
so it all goes back to that, the connection, the sharing, the openness, um, is it's so important.
Yeah.
But you're right, though, it can be hard. Who do I connect to? My
Right.
boss. Well, no,
Right.
I
No, and
probably
I think the who is really important. I mean, I know I haven't gone through what you've gone through, but I've gone through a really challenging time and with more than one of my kids. And I know at one point, and this is where, this is where the internet is really helpful. I really felt like there wasn't anyone
right,
physically close to me that I could go past a certain level, right? There's one
right,
level you can talk about it, but there's another level where the raw grief, pain, suffering, all
right.
of that. And a lot of
Fear,
us
right,
keep that fear, keep that hidden. We unconsciously know we don't want to put that on another person. We know it's a lot,
right,
and me, probably being a psychologist, I'm trying to protect everyone who's around me, it's like
right,
hold it in. And I want to speak to that too, because with both of us, there's that you look like you have it all together on the outside. And so and again, who do you reach out to? But I went and searched on the internet and um, found a hotline, or a warm line, whatever you want to call it. And
right,
you know that they connected me with, it took a little while, it took a little
right,
persistence. These things, most of them are volunteer, they're nonprofits, so some volunteers, some not, but it takes a little persistence. But they connected me with a mom who had gone through something very similar.
wow,
And she was about, I want to say, 7 years out
right,
from that experience. And I've never met her in person. She became an incredible gift to me
wow,
that
wow,
she was willing to share her phone number.
wow,
She was willing to have me text her if I was in some sort of a crisis. She could talk through in a way, as
wow,
someone who knew exactly what it felt like to
wow,
be a mom in that
wow,
situation, but who had the perspective and the distance to be able to bring a little calm
right, right.
guidance,
Also,
and
like to show you that there's a light at the end of the tunnel,
there's possible,
and she got through it. Right,
right, right.
right,
And I'm incredibly grateful because, to be honest, in a small community, sometimes it was harder for me to know who could really handle the depth of what I needed when I'm usually the person handling it for everyone around me,
Right,
right?
right,
And
right,
so I'm just underlining what you said about the resources and identifying who is that right person to share with, and not to give up
right,
and
right,
feel like I can't share this for whatever reason, and
right,
look for the different ways. And
right.
it shows up differently.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Well, and I do a lot of that for people. Like, people know to reach out to me.
Right.
And, people in the community will say, like, I have this friend who's got, a son. Will you talk to the parents? Will you talk to, and so
Right.
that I do that a lot. Um, and it sounds like, kind of very similar to what
Yeah.
this person
Yeah.
did, which sounds amazing. And like I'm
It's
so glad to know that they're able to make those kind of connections,
Yeah,
people together. That's
and
amazing.
and again, it does take a little, you got to go,
Right.
you kind of have to
Dig
go
deep.
through, dig,
Yeah.
dig, and not give up. And for some people, it might be their church or
Oh, absolutely.
their synagogue, or it
Absolutely.
might be, I mean, it's different. It's different for everyone. So share let's say that someone listening does have a child who's suffering with mental illness. What would you share with them if you were that person on the other end of the phone? What would you share with them
I
in the
would definitely, and not to be repetitive, but I would definitely say open up,
Okay.
because you're going to learn from people. You're going to learn. I mean, don't live in a little secret,
Yeah.
like in a secret silo, because you're going to learn like, oh, this is a great therapist, or this is a great support group, or this is a great social skills group. I mean, they have so many more resources now.
Right.
Um, I would say, and talk to people about therapists that they recommend, talk to
Right.
people about schools that they
Right.
recommend. I would say um, definitely reach out to these organizations like the
Hmm.
NAMIs of the
Right.
world.
Right.
I would say get yourself in therapy if you
Hmm.
can, like if
Hmm.
if you can afford it. I think it's really, really important. And I think that family therapy is really important
Yeah.
too. And
Yeah.
it's
You
not
know,
always that easy, because the child a lot of times doesn't want to, because they're
right.
afraid you're going to tell them what to do and
Right.
put rules down. And
Well,
it's up.
yeah, and family therapy. I mean, a great family therapist is excellent, but there is that possibility that, and I think a person who is the person who's struggling at that particular point might feel like they're that all eyes are on them, when with an excellent family therapist that would not be the case. I just say that because sometimes that does unfortunately happen, and then they don't want to go. What's the point
Yep.
of going if all the fingers are pointed toward them? And I think your point about, as a parent, getting your own therapy is so critical, because
Yeah.
you and this is the thing, I feel like I my kids helped me learn this. We are all on our individual journeys. Now
Yeah.
we intersect for a while. We don't always know how long that will be, but we intersect, but we're actually also on our individual journeys. And so a lot of times with it happens with both moms and dads, but I would say more frequently with mothers, where there's a connection where it's almost like it's all about the child.
Yeah.
And I'm underlining what you said, because as you do your own work, you actually are modeling how to do that to your
Totally.
children.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're anxious,
Yeah.
then your child feels that
Yeah.
anxiety, and it definitely impacts them. Another thing that I think is really important, because I ended up with a kid that turned 18 and beyond, is when they turn
Oh,
18, they don't need your permission anymore, and they can cut you out.
yeah.
So I think it's really important to try to come up with some kind of an arrangement where you can still be involved in their care. And so what I did was I said to Bradley, I'm not, I don't need to know about the details of your
Details.
therapy and
Right.
like what you're talking about with your therapist, but I need to be part of your medication management and your treatment plan.
Yeah.
Um, I had a little more leverage because I was paying the bills, which
Right.
typically that's the case. So if
Right.
that's the case,
Right.
you have more leverage.
Right.
It's hard though, because sometimes they're like, well, then don't pay for it. I don't care. Then
Right.
I don't, then I won't go.
Right.
So I get it. It's very complicated. But I think it's important to do like kind of when they're 17, so you're ready,
Right.
and then maybe it's already in place.
Right.
Um, and I do believe in creating contracts like between the parent and the child. We did that, and sort of like the things and the things that we're gonna do and the things that they're gonna do.
Right.
And then I was able to go back to the piece of paper, and like, so it didn't have to be like, well, I said you have to do this.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
well, you signed the
We
contract.
agreed.
We agreed, and in the
Right.
contract, yeah, and it was hard. It was hard coming up with the contract.
Right.
They're good little negotiators,
Oh,
these
yeah.
kids. They negotiate hard.
By the way, there are resources for that as well on the internet.
Oh,
I'll have,
great.
yeah,
Okay.
I'll have to grab this link. I'm blanking on the name right now, but there, yeah, I'm just saying that for anyone who just feels like, I don't know where to start. She's a lawyer. She knows how
Right,
to write a contract.
right,
I don't know
right,
where to
right,
start. There
right.
are resources where they just kind of, they give examples or they give
Yeah,
you,
no, and it doesn't have to have legalese in it. And it just basically says like, I pay for your therapy, you go to therapy.
right,
You have to, I give you an allowance, you go to school,
right,
you
right,
make your
right,
bed,
right.
you exercise this many days a week, and it's incentivizing them for the things that they want. And it sounds a little rigid, but I strongly, strongly recommend it.
Yeah,
I think it's a powerful tool
it's
to
helpful
take,
for
yeah, and
both.
it just
Yeah,
take the weight off of you as the parent, the because I said so. Well,
right,
there's kind
right.
of more to it, and then they can kind of buy into it also.
Yeah. So you definitely in your energy, I would say people who are listening or watching can sense that you have been able to tap in 7 years. You've been able to tap into some joy in your life. Um, what do you love? What brings you the most joy in the work that you're doing?
I guess, I mean, it really would be knowing that I'm making an impact,
Okay.
and like making connections with people, and having them feel something coming out of it, and
Mhm.
then knowing that it's all in honor of Bradley,
Yeah.
and feeling like Bradley's life um has incredible meaning, which it always did,
Right.
and it always will. Um, but it like kind of keeps him in my everyday life.
Mhm.
Sometimes they say that when you lose someone, in a way, it's almost like you're closer to them because
Mhm.
you make an effort to remember them, and they're always with you. Whereas, like, everyone else you take for granted
Take for granted. Yeah.
because they're always here. But it's like I'm
Right.
always thinking about him. I look at
That's
a menu, and
interesting.
it's like that's his favorite thing. Like, this is what he loves to eat, and that's his favorite song,
Mhm.
and that's his, that's this is his favorite play. And one thing we do to remember him is every year at Christmas we pick out a book, and we've created the Bradley Sonnenberg Library, and because he loved reading, and we
Mhm.
pick out a book that either he loved or that is a genre that he would love, like
Right.
a book that we think he would love. And I put these little book plates that say, like, the Bradley Sonnenberg Library, and we like send them to people in our community, and his
Oh.
community. And my hopes is that like everybody has like a little section in their library, like,
Oh.
the Bradley Sonnenberg Library within their library. So,
Oh, I love that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
So, yeah, it's really feeling like I'm making an impact in his memory, and even as I say those words, like it like gives me goosebumps,
yeah.
like thinking that we can make a difference together, that we can heal the world, that we can, like I mentioned
Oh,
earlier, save one life. Um, is really what keeps me going. Singing in his
I
memory.
I love
Um,
that.
like I love, I mean, people sit in the audience and they cry. Like I see them crying, because, I'm a symbol of
Right.
um the worst thing
Hope,
that can happen
hope.
to
You're
someone.
actually a
And
symbol of
hope.
hope.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. That's
You know,
exactly right.
I
And
think,
yes. And I had a psychiatrist who said to me, because I was in therapy myself when my son was struggling, and she said to me, as long as he's alive, there's hope. And
Mm,
so I say that to people a lot,
yeah.
because they're like, it's hopeless, and I
Right.
can't, we can't, there's nothing we can do. And I don't, nope.
Right.
As long as your child is alive or your loved one is alive, there's hope. So do not give up hope.
Yeah.
Um, and
Mm,
yes, so hope is incredibly, incredibly important. That's what keeps people going. I mean,
yeah.
that's what keeps people going after, after war
Yeah.
and after horrible things that happen. We know
Disease and tragedy
disease
and
and
yeah.
right and
Yeah.
fires, and there's hope that that we will rebuild, so yes,
Yeah.
those are the
Mm.
kind of things
What
that bring me joy.
what do you think that Bradley would want to say to you right now?
I mean, because he was very irreverent and very sarcastic and I mean, I think he would be like, "Really, mom? Like, are you for real?" Um, and I think he would say, "I told you that Bitcoin was a good purchase."
I love it.
And he would say, I would like to think that he would say, "I'm really proud of you, mom." And I think he would say that. And then I would like to think, and I don't want to start crying, that
Mm.
he would say, like, "I'm okay, mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about me anymore. I'm
Yeah.
okay."
I'm sure he's sending you that message.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that in everything that you've talked about and what you do and how you're carrying on, just the energy is that he's there along with you and is
Yeah.
saying that everything's okay, and that's
Yeah.
incredibly beautiful. And
Yeah.
thank you for reaching in. I know that not always an easy
Yeah.
question, but I'm such a firm believer in keeping keeping our loved ones who are no longer physically present, keeping them alive, not in a way that is hurts or stunts our own journey, right? I mean, I
Right.
think that
Right.
can
To hold you
happen
back.
sometimes,
Right.
right? That
Right.
can happen sometimes, but in a way to expand our journey. And I feel like you're an incredible representation of that. We were talking about a little bit ago about the different journeys, each person on
Right.
their different journeys, and the journey looks differently, right? When my mom died, my sister's journey was different than my journey was different than our
Right.
dad's journey.
Right.
And and yet that was the same it was that person died. But then how do we bring that in, and how do we it's not how do we keep that person alive, but it's more, I think, of how do we honor the
Yeah.
journey of that person as
That's
we
exactly
continue
right.
on our journey, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and
That,
I feel
yeah.
that you,
Yeah.
in this small amount of sharing, I feel that you exhibit that. That
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
he impacted many people while he was alive, and now is even impacting more people
Mhm.
when he's gone.
Yeah.
But they're never gone. That's the thing.
Right.
They're
Right.
just
Well, and
physically
that's the
not here.
weird thing, right? I was just saying it's been 23 years since my mom died, and someone who had a loss that was more recent, I want to say maybe in the last year, had reached out to me and said, I feel so weird. I would picked up my phone to call him. And
Yeah.
I said, I still sometimes do that.
Yeah. That's
Don't
not that
even,
weird.
there's like a
Right. Yeah.
little thing in there that just like it's like I don't know what it is. And then you're like, that's so weird. You
Right.
know, it's like
Right.
mentally, that they're not there, but there's something inside.
Oh
I
no,
I
it's
just
yeah.
say,
I agree. Like I still, and I mean, it hasn't been that long, but it's been seven
right,
years. I just say like, how can there be a world without him in it?
right,
Like,
right. Like
like
it doesn't
it
match
just
up. Right,
doesn't compute.
right,
Like,
right.
it just,
Well,
how
that's
can,
why he keeps sending you that song,
right.
just to let you know he's not gone.
I'm
He's just not
here.
in
I'm
physical
here.
form.
I'm here. I know. Well, my husband told me who he's even more left brain than I am. And he makes me look like a spiritual kind of person. And he said he had a dream the other night.
Mm,
His father passed away years ago, and he had a dream. He goes, Andrea, he goes, it was so vivid. I'm telling you, he goes, it was so vivid. And my dad came to me in my dream and said, "Don't worry, Bradley's okay. I've got him." And and we're together. And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Maybe he came to you." I mean, he said it was
So beautiful.
so vivid.
How did it make your husband feel?
He said it made him feel
Okay.
good.
That's what I tell people when people are like, this is so weird. This is so weird. And especially as I work with a lot of left brain people, my
Yeah.
clients are,
Yeah.
but there is this curiosity and this wondering about what else is there that I can't quite put my fingers
Yeah.
on, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just that, what was I going to say about the dream? Oh, how did it make you feel is something that they can connect with. And if it feels good, it's kind of like, well, do we really have to completely diagnose and
Exactly.
outline it? We don't.
Exactly.
If it makes
Whatever,
you feel good.
whatever it was, whether it was a
Yeah.
subconscious
Yeah.
message, but of comfort,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, it felt good. It
Because I
felt
had people say to me, my mom definitely did come to me. It was not a dream. It felt it felt too vivid to be a dream, right? And I had a lot of people go, "Oh yeah, you're missing her. You're thinking of her." That could be, but
right.
wow, I'm not going to say no to it because it was like I was with her again for a brief
Right.
moment, and she was hilarious, and what she said was so spot on with her
Her. Yeah.
being with her number one, but also with her not having to worry about any of the human things. So there was like enough of an element of it that felt like it really was her speaking from the other side
Beyond.
because
Yeah.
she's like,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, huh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. But anyway, I really appreciate you sharing because I think anyone who and look, it could be struggling with anything. It doesn't have to be a death of someone, and it
Oh
doesn't
my
be the
gosh, there's
death
so
of your
much loss
child.
and
Yeah, so
divorce and
much loss.
job loss and
Yeah.
friendship loss and oh my God, there's so
Yeah.
many
And
things.
and no matter what anyone is feeling and experiencing right now, my hope is that in this conversation that they can feel, there's still the tears, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, of course. Like that's not going to go away.
Right.
And if you try to make it go away, that's a whole nother problem. But there's
Right.
also the hope and the joy and the journey and also the service to other people.
Yes.
And I think you're being able to encompass all of that as you do and model that is such a gift to everyone who comes in your path.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel very blessed that I had Bradley in my life for the
Mhm.
years that I had him, and grateful that he's with me now, and that we're able to do this work together, and that we can try to heal the world one life at a
Yeah.
time.
I love that. So if anyone would like to know more about all of the different work that you're doing, where can they go?
They can go to my name, andreasonnenberg.com,
Okay.
and it's got all my books and the podcast and the mental health coalition that I've formed and all the different works that I'm doing. So I'd love come
Okay.
visit us.
Okay, great. Thank you. And that will also be in the show notes for anyone who wants it. And just, is there any one last thing that you'd like to share with the audience today before we say goodbye?
Let's see. What could I say? What could I say? I just think that we need to be really like supportive of our young people and do what we can to listen, to connect them to each other. I think that well, this is one thing we didn't touch on. I think that like peer support we talked about peer support for adults, but peer
Mhm,
support for young
mhm.
people, I think is really, really
Yeah.
incredible. Um, but I think that that would be sort of my closing message is like, let's listen to the kids
Yeah.
because they kind of know what they need. They're different. Their thinking is different than ours. They're younger than we are. They have less experience. They're in a different place. They're experiencing things differently. So I want to, kind of like listen to them and create programming and things with their voice,
Yeah.
as a part of what we're doing. So I would say that would be something that I want to make sure that we focus on as well.
I love that. And I had last season, I had a young woman on named Livy Redden on the podcast who um, shared her story, her journey. Her dad was actually diagnosed and died while she was a teenager. And
Mm.
as a young young adult, she's incredibly passionate about advocating for that the peer, what you were just talking about, that
Yeah.
peer
Yeah.
support. And she's like, yes, like people who are older than us have an incredible value to bring, and we need to be there for each other. And
They
and so
they
I
really do.
yeah,
They really,
yeah.
really do. And they have a
So,
different perspective, and we cannot leave them out. We can't just program for them
right,
and
right,
think we know what they want. And we know,
right.
we have the science and we have, some of the expertise behind us,
Yeah,
but they need to be a part of it as well.
yeah. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, it's
Really
my
enjoyed having
absolute
you on.
pleasure. It's so nice to meet you, and thank you. I look forward to putting, getting the
Yeah,
podcast out there when it comes out, and I hope our paths cross again soon.
absolutely. I'm sure they will.
All right, take care.